All right, I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the C3 framework, college, career, and civic life. So first thing we're going to look at is some of the main goals of the C3 framework. Some of you might not be familiar with it at all, so we want to make sure we know about the goals first. The first one is to enhance the rigor of the social studies disciplines. Rigor does not necessarily mean assigning more work or longer essays or longer homework hours, but rigor in the aspect of making students think critically, investigate issues, and delve deeper into topics, and especially topics of interest. The second one is we're going to build those critical thinking, problem solving, and participatory skills that are necessary for students to become engaged citizens. We want them to be doing something in life and actively participating, so we need to make sure that we are helping them build those thinking and solving skills. The third one, we are going to align the academic programs to the Common Core standards for ELA, and literacy in history, social studies. Social studies does not have its own standalone standards at the moment for Common Core, but we do have some within the ELA that focuses on literacy. We're going to look at some of the guiding principles of the C3 framework. First, we want to look at the fact that it prepares the nation's young people for college, career, and civic life. We know and acknowledge that not all of our students are going to go to college. We hope that they go into a career field relatively soon if they're not going to go to college, but they are all going to have a civic life in society. So we want to make sure that they're learning some knowledge about how to be prepared for civic life, whether it's being active in their community or just voting. Inquiry is at the heart of social studies. So we're always trying to think about why something happened, what we can do to rectify a problem, how that problem or event transcribes into today's society. We're going to look at how it involves the interdisciplinary applications and welcomes integration of the arts and humanities. It's not necessarily something that stands alone. We can look at everything overall and how it corresponds to one another. The next part of the guiding principles we're going to look at is it's composed of deep and enduring understandings, concepts, and skills from the disciplines. We just don't want to give a brief overview and have students memorizing names and dates. We want them to really understood what happened, why an individual was important, why an event happened, what we can learn from that, how it relates to current life. You're going to emphasize the skills and practices as preparation for democratic decision making. We live in a democracy. The students need to know how to be prepared for that and how the decision making process happens. Social studies education should have direct and explicit connections to the Common Core state standards for ELA and literacy in history, social studies. So we want to make sure that we're hitting those literacy standards. We are going to look at some of the shifts with the C3 framework. So the C3 framework emphasizes the acquisition and application of knowledge to prepare students for college, career, and civic life. We're just not going to be preparing all students to go to college or all students to go into the workforce. We want to have a combination of it and provide them with options to be a prepared civic individual. What does this envision? The C3 framework intentionally envisions social studies instruction as an inquiry arc of interlocking and mutually reinforcing elements that speak to the intersection of ideas and learners. We're just not going to throw ideas out there and tell our students they need to know them just because they need to know them. We want them to learn about these ideas and become an active learner where they actually have an interest that might be sparked or guided for them so they can learn more from that. There are 4 dimensions within the C3 framework. They center on the use of questions to do the following: spark curiosity. How often are we posed with a question and maybe go ahead and look it up on the internet and then just start clicking on additional links or pages that we get in a search result or we find from an article. It sparks our curiosity. We want to make sure we're sparking that with our students. It's at the heart of human nature that everybody is interested in something or wants to investigate something a little bit deeper. It's just allowing that to happen with our students. We're going to have guided instruction. So the students are still going to have their learning event packet credits. They are going to have the time period or topic that's within there. So it is going to be guided. We're just not going to say, hey, go on the internet and find me an article or a primary source from some historical event. We're going to have it guided. And that's probably going to be one of the larger challenges as a teacher, is being able to allow the students to go on their own and search and see what they can bring back to us. But it's a change and we need to go with it and we need to accept it also. But I do realize it is going to be outside of the comfort zone for many people, especially at the very beginning. We're going to deepen investigations. Instead of just giving an overview, we want them to look deeper into certain areas, whether it's an area that we want to focus them on or an area that the student wants to focus on. We want them to go in, instead of just reading that primary source, but go and learn about the people, learn what was going on and find out why it happened and what we can learn from it and how it might apply to present day to change a situation. We're going to acquire rigorous content, so just not thick books and extra work. It's going to be looking into primary and secondary sources. Going to apply knowledge and ideas in real-world settings to enable students to become active and engaged citizens in the 21st century. We're 14 years into the 21st century, so we can't prepare them to be 21st century learners. We're already here. So what we need to do is let the students become active and engaged. How many times did we, even as students, say, why does this matter? When am I ever going to use this again? So we want to make sure that they can find the relevance and importance out of events and how it can make a connection to present day. The C3 framework organization, it is broken down into 4 dimensions. The first dimension is on the left with developing questions and planning inquiries. That we're going to develop those questions, plan inquiries, and think deeper into things. The second dimension is applying disciplinary tools and concepts. Here's where we're going to be a little more subject matter specific: economics, civics, geography, and history. So with history classified, you can think world history, U.S. history, any other generalized one within there. Dimension 3, evaluating sources and using evidence. Students are going to be gathering and evaluating sources, primary and secondary, finding out if it's valid, why it was written, who wrote it, why they wrote it, and developing claims and using evidence. Instead of making a blanket statement, they need to support that with evidence and back it up. And dimension 4, on the far right, communicating conclusions and taking informed action. So this is where we're going to really prepare for that civic component. Communicating and critiquing conclusions and taking informed action. Find out why something happened, how it could be changed, if it was the right decision. So some of you might be asking, why do we need C3? Why is this any different from anything else? Why do we need to change? In the past, we've had a marginalization of the social studies. We have had a large emphasis in the past 15 years or so on with NCLB of just a focus on math and English, unfortunately, in a lot of the lower grades, where social studies was skipped over and students weren't getting a lot of that content until they reached middle or high school. So we want to make sure that we can change it. It's our time right now to revamp our curriculum on what our students need. We're going to have motivation for students and the motivation of students. What's going to make them interested? Why are they going to like our content? Why is it important? A lot of students in the past have thought that it's just boring because it's stuff that happened in the past. So we want to make sure we can get some of those exciting stories, documents, and really transfer of why it could happen present day, why is it similar to present day, what we can learn from it. And it is the future of our democracy. It is our responsibility within social studies to prepare our learners and our students to be citizens, to know the background, know history, and go on from there. With the marginalization of social studies, we had the loss of the instructional time at the elementary level that I had previously mentioned. There was the narrowing of instruction just on ELA and math. Common Core provides an opportunity to reframe the instruction to promote disciplinary literacy. Reading is just not in English. It is in every subject, but we're really going to drive that point with our social studies and expose them to different materials to read other than a textbook. It's an opportunity to regain a more balanced and elevated role in the K through 12 curriculum as well. Motivation of students. Children and adolescents are naturally curious about the complex and multifaceted world that they inhabit, and they become quickly disengaged when instruction is limited to reading textbooks to answer end-of-chapter questions and taking multiple choice tests that may measure content knowledge but do little to measure how knowledge is meaningful and applicable in the real world. If it's boring, they tune out, so we want to make sure they aren't tuning out. The future of our democracy. Research bears out the sad reality that fewer and fewer young people, particularly students of color and students in poverty, are receiving high-quality social studies education, despite the central role of social studies in preparing students for responsibilities of citizenship. So we want to make sure they're prepared for when they go out in the real world after high school. And also, it's active and responsible citizens that are able to identify and analyze public problems, deliberate with other people about how to define and address issues, take constructive action together, reflect on their actions, create and sustain groups, and influence institutions both large and small. So we want to make sure, who knows, they could be the next mayor or next president. We don't want to undermine our students. We want to prepare them to be active and responsible citizens and think about why things are happening, if there's a problem in their community, where they can come up with a possible solution. And most importantly, they vote. They serve on juries when called. They follow the news and current events, and they participate in voluntary groups and efforts. So we want to make sure that we're preparing them. So what's the main point? The main point I want to leave you guys with today is that implementing the C3 framework to teach students to be able to act in these ways as citizens, it significantly enhances the preparation for college and career. We just don't want to focus on one. We want to focus on both, and they're all citizens. So it's our duty to do this. If you would like some additional information, you can go to www.socialstudies.org/C3 in order to learn more about the C3 framework. Thank you.